I did that last vlog. I didn't do it.
Honestly, I didn't know. After I started doing it, I was like,
I really don't feel like doing anything.
the only thing I can't do is squat. I can't squat these times.
Do what it says on the board.
It just costs you to get bigger on you, doesn't it? Or maybe you didn't have everybody here that day.
Prop stats class keeps getting bigger.
Andrews, I've noticed
Yeah, I had this for a while. I just dug it up.
dug up. You just dug that out of the trash.
I'm gonna throw in like EVs there or something.
I'm gonna do like the whole like That's my last rule. That's how much Alright, but I want to do more. I gotta get like that torture.
Keep forgetting my post.
That's how I
Get those capsules fast.
You keep forgetting how to throw.
What?
Forgetting.
No, I'm
Why don't you just leave it in your car?
I know. I mean, even if I look at the phone and credit out there, you go out there and grab it.
Okay, you can. If you get out to go fishing, you can.
The surf slide.
It's like taking it on each other side. I mean, it's not that, like, the after.
Like the next.
Should be working on what it says. I'm gonna collect it here in about
10 minutes. Maybe 10. Probably shorter than that.
Man. Why
Are
are
you-
you calling workshops now?
read what it says. If you're here last time, remember, I'm not gonna keep explaining these every single time. This is stuff that you're supposed to know already. It's just sort of review.
Hey, is that
That's,
Yeah. Don't waste time, because you'll be mad when I collect it, because it's pretty long one this time. Have your homework out. I'm gonna check it here in just a minute. So this is everybody's supposed to be in here, right? Because there's like 10 at the start of the year. 3, 6, down to like 8. By the end of the day today, Moodle will be caught up. Did I ever collect your guys' parent forms?
Oh, I still have mine. I got.
Yeah, I collect them and nobody just turned them in except for Brianna. Is that?
oh, I got mine.
If you have your parent forms, lay them on that desk right in front of Michael. If not, get it in here real soon.
I don't know if I turned mine in.
The only one I have is Brianna's, because I thought maybe I stuck them with a different class or something and I couldn't find it. Back to my original point, Moodle will be caught up today. After today, there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 grades on there. 5 grades actually, because I have this workshop that you did last time to put on there. So 5 grades on there. If you're not happy with what your grade is, do something about it. Had a junior in my last SWAT class. I shouldn't even be in here because they didn't do their homework. Shouldn't even be in here. They changed John Doe and put him in Apex. Why am I not in Apex? You know what I told him? See ya! Get gone, babe! Go away! guys got any Apex stuff?
I do.
I don't even know.
Brianna, some of you guys might want to explain to them. They're not all as easy as everybody's making them out to be,
Stuff like that.
especially a math class.
Yeah, I'm glad they put me in all the math classes. I was not trying to.
Because if you got to do all that by yourself, and then the thing is that they want to run back here and ask Mr. Ebersole for help after they transfer out of my class to take Apex.
It definitely,
Wait,
it definitely
you have
sucks,
to-
like being in all the math classes, like, cause you have 2 in one day, that sucks, but it's better than doing it like on the computer.
You know, when if you came back here and said, Mr. Ebersole, can you help me with this Apex stuff? I'm not the nicest of people. So you drop my class to take an Apex class and want me to explain stuff to
Can
you.
everybody do Apex or is it just certain people?
I have no idea. I have no idea how they have it set up. I think it's about the dumbest thing ever because they're not using it the way it was meant to be used.
How is it supposed to be used?
It was meant to be used because my wife used to teach at the alternative school down at Eaton. And what that school was for, and that's what it was like Apex, where you're on the computer and working by yourself. It's just me that smells Dakota. My scent. I had to take a shower this week. And the way it was supposed to be used, and the people that she taught a lot were young ladies who maybe got pregnant and had to be out of school for a while, and they were in there to try to catch themselves up, or young men who maybe did something stupid and might have ended up at Troy for a while or something, and they got behind, and so then they had them in there, and you could try to get yourself caught up. It's supposed to be to make up credits. Well, now we're using it. Oh, if Johnny fails 4 classes this year, we'll just stick him in Apex next year.
That's the
Make
easy
up
way
all
out.
the
Why are we
credits.
gonna
Right,
do
and
it
that's what a
very
lot of these students think. Oh, I'll just fail Ebersole's class because he's a jerk, and I'll take Apex.
That's stupid.
I only have it because I needed another business credit, and I couldn't do that because,
All your other classes.
yeah, because it would have affected my English, and my English would have been in my algebra.
Right. And see, that's what we're supposed to be using it for. Not to stick in some of these, like last year, I had sophomores that they yanked out of my class and stuck in there. And I even asked him, I said, why are we sticking sophomores in Apex? Oh, because we don't want them to get behind in credits.
Fudge.
Well, then we need to teach them to do some work and not get behind in the credits.
Wait,
I had one student this year who,
it's on page 31. About to
31. Oh, 20.
had one student this year who spent one day in my geometry class, and I had to come over and say, you need to write down these notes. First day, you need to write down these notes so that you have them. Well, then next day I get an email saying, oh, he's gonna get out of your geometry class and take it in Apex and take Mrs. Brown's Algebra 2 class. And I could tell by the look on Michael's face, I wonder if there's a reason why that student knew. He went down there and complained and said, it'd be easier for me to take geometry online and take Algebra 2 in class. Well, I wonder why he did that when I'm the teacher of geometry and Mrs. Brown's his Algebra 2 teacher.
This makes no sense. It says find the percentage, but that's not a percent.
Was it easy?
Yeah.
Dude, I was building like towers today out of these little blocks and she had no idea.
Did you do that?
I was sitting like on the ground in the front row.
Oh, well, no, your answer's not going to be that. It should, you're right.
So that's right?
Probably. That the directions there should say, should probably say, find the percentage of each number. They just didn't completely write out the directions that they actually wanted you to do.
tied to that. That's just, it's not, you know?
I go hard every single day.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I heard Shady's always like, everybody back up, you're not low. On that note.
Which question, Dolly?
On here, every single one, you just put an opioid in front of it.
You bump the decimal 2 places. Remember, change a percent to a decimal, you bump it 2 places.
Do we have to add the zeros?
Sometimes, not always.
He always says like, he'll say like, because he's seen a video of some dude squat.
Yeah,
Spleen came out of his butt. And he thinks that's what's gonna happen to me.
You could, but the chances are like low.
Some dude was squat next to me.
Oh my god.
And that's what Shane keeps saying about me pretty soon.
Yeah, change. Awesome for me every time you win, change like, everybody back up. We might blow.
I hate it. It's so annoying. I hate it. You just want to say. I mean, it's fine. I mean, the class itself is fine. And it's not.
Like 330 per 15. Hey, Mr. Everson. I'm listening. Are you supposed to vote this with 2 places if it's one, if it's
Yep,
one
no
number?
matter what, it's always 2 places. When you move the decimal, change percent to a decimal or a decimal to a percent, you always bump it 2.
Alright, thank you.
I think I said last time I went. Could be.
5%.
No, I said, they asked me if you add any zeros. I said, sometimes you have to add in zeros.
Don't just put 20% in there.
Few times though, right? Yeah. Got a couple more minutes. Sydney will help you. What am I helping you with?
I don't know, he's getting ready to ask a question that I'm not gonna answer. He's not mad at me.
Times of means times.
Bump it 2 places no matter what. Sounds right. 5, 5. There's still 2 5s there.
You still have your 2-liter Mountain Dew in here?
Yeah, I have some. Vodka this year. I think now I have Mountain Mist or whatever, something.
Yeah. Mountain Lion.
Is that what it is?
Mountain Lion. Mountain Lion.
Mountain Dew, I'm broke, so I buy the Mountain Dew when it's $1.
Well, that's why you're just up for your pop in general. That's
I only drink Sprite.
Gotta have
Drink
something.
Curacao.
Dirty.
Yeah, I don't know.
Make a guess, I have faith in you, Caleb. Michael will help you.
well, I don't even know what I
Michael squared on it, so there's 2 of them.
I just took 2018 times that on the price.
Cool.
We'll go home. You went to? No.
Call off again. You never go to
You
work.
work today?
Yeah.
What time?
3. I called off.
What?
9. Never mind.
What are you gonna say?
We got teachers.
We just call out work.
Oh yeah, I have my teamwork class today. Yeah, I could
You call off work
work like
again?
I do if I wasn't a teacher.
Let's call off work again.
Then I get out of school now. Go straight to
I work till 5, close.
You keep on calling off, Michael Dave's gonna fire you.
Why would I call you? That's between you and them.
Are you gonna check calculators?
Oh yeah, I have one. I just keep forgetting to bring it. I mean,
that doesn't count.
I haven't even opened it on the package.
You better start bringing
I haven't even turned it on.
Hold your calculator up in the air.
Oh,
Give Michael a 0. Alright, I got him. Michael's only one. Michael.
I have my calculator every day, lad.
Better bring it. I'm writing it down right now.
Should have your phone calculator.
It's got no, that doesn't count.
I did. You would have taken it then. Snapchat everybody.
Yeah, that's right. I will.
My mom would be like, "Who's this old dude on your Snapchat?"
Old dude.
Your mom has a Snapchat. My mom has a Snapchat.
Oh,
She's blocked. She has yours.
My mom has
What?
My mom's blocked from my story.
That's what
I was
say.
gonna say,
What do you have on Snapchat?
Yeah, I have my Snapchat.
Andrew's just repping on the Nike today, huh?
Yeah, I got it.
I wish I
Because
wish
she
I
asked
had
me
on
where
rubber
I
sweatshirt on. I was like,
went
what am I doing?
what
Someone
I did.
Snapchat me yesterday. It was like, how come I never see your stories anymore? And I was like, I don't know. I'm not blocked, but you really are.
Yikes.
Phones are bothering me again because I have a lot of the freshmen and sophomores this year. And I know that they're smart alecks. I know that it's not the case, but I have a lot of them saying that they can't afford a calculator.
They got like iPhones.
They got
They're out
a
there
$600
driving.
phone that they pay $150 a month to have
They're driving
in their
around.
pocket.
Yeah, 45 a month.
My mom does that.
It's a lot better.
Even 45 a month.
There's too much eyes.
Have you seen somebody cars driving?
Yeah, I have to buy my own
I paid
car.
$750.
My
The
grandparents-
frame is about half gone. I tried to sell my car for $500 this summer if I would buy it.
What's wrong with it?
That tells
That's
you.
like, I almost got choked up, but they didn't care.
Piece of
Like,
junk.
That's super.
Still runs.
You know what? I love my car because I can like get it dirty.
I pay my-
I meant to put.
It's never. Some of you will understand when you get to be my age. I will never drive a nice car.
Well, my,
Because if I get a nice car, I have 3 kids and a wife. If I get a nice car, one of them will be driving it, and I'll still be driving the piece of
Does your
junk.
wife have a nice car? My mom
So
told
do
me,
both my sons.
my mom told me for my graduation gift, if I like have like all A's throughout the year, she paid down payment for a car, but I have. I'm getting a G. I'm great.
Oh yeah, it was bad. It's bad.
Are you sure?
Like I could be like warming up, you know, like something small, like maybe like a jog or whatever, something. But I'm always just
I want one so bad.
Alright.
Hey,
Go to,
like,
you hit me, I was like on like 15. And he smacked me, like right at the passenger side of the door.
Alright, first thing I want you to do, I want you to come up here and grab one from each of these two stacks of papers.
Don't you give me.
And once you get them back to your seat, just set them off to the side and keep your books open to page 15. And you might want to make sure that you watch and follow along carefully as we go over page 15. Especially if you weren't sure if you were understanding it or not.
Oh, we need that too.
Dude, Dave Ramsey, we watched that and Mr. Wendell.
We watched that CBI.
I'm not watching it.
Dave Ramsey almost put me to sleep every time.
Set those papers off to the side. Look at page 15. Page 15, problems. 5 through, what did we do? 5 through 23. Shouldn't have been too hard. You could use your calculator, right?
Yeah.
So you grab your calculator, use it, you multiply them together. The thing I want you to remember when you're multiplying with decimals, you're going to get extra decimals. Sometimes it's going to make sense to round those decimals off, especially if you're dealing with money. If I'm dealing with money,
You know what? I think I was recording this. I said something stupid about vodka a while ago.
when you get an answer and maybe it looks like this, you got to know that that's not a good answer if you're dealing with money. You have to round it off correctly. All right? Down at the bottom, 20 through, hopefully, did anybody have any trouble with those, the ones that you're just multiplying? Those are pretty easy, right? You stuck them in the calculator. When you're multiplying by 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, did you stick those in your calculator?
Yes.
See, I would hope that you wouldn't.
Well, oh no.
If I'm multiplying this by 10, what's that tell me to do? Move the decimal one place. If I'm multiplying by 100, what do I do? Move the decimal 2 places. If I'm multiplying by 1,000, what do I do? Move it 3 places. That's what they were trying to show you with those problems. So if you're multiplying by 10, you bump the decimal over 1. Now where a lot of you get confused, if I've got that 52 there and I want to multiply it by 10 and the decimal's not shown, where's it located? At the end. So I bump it here, and what do I got to add in there? 0. So one of the questions was, when do you add zeros? When you need them, right? Is it always going to be you have to add zeros? Not always. So 52 times 10 would be 520. 52 times 100, you'd add 2 zeros. 52 times 1,000, you would add 3 zeros. You got to start knowing some of that so it makes some of these problems as we go throughout the year a little easier. Flip over to page 31. Michael's going to come back to this world so that he sees these. When you have a problem, like number 7 says 20% of 54. Of means times, right? So you're doing 20% times 54. Can you put 20% in the calculator the way it is? You got to change it into a decimal. How do you change 20% into a decimal? Bump the decimal over 2 places. You bump it 2 places every single time. Not just when it's got 2 numbers there, every single time. So this would be 0.20 times 54. 0.20 times 54, my book says, is about 10.8. Does that seem like about what you got, maybe? Let's look at a problem like number 13. 13 says 4% of, I lost it, 95. So am I going to take 0.4 times 95? No. The decimal's here. How many places do I bump it over? 2. Then I have to add a 0. So 0.04 times 95. You get that? To help you out, you've got to use some common sense every now and then. 4% is a pretty small percentage, right? So when I figure out 4% of 95, I think of it this way. If it was 4% of 100, percents all go by hundreds. 4% of 100 would be 4. So 4% of 95 should be somewhere fairly close to 4. So if I got an answer of like 42, what do I know? That's probably wrong. 4% of 95 can't be 42. 42 is almost half of 95. That's 50%. You got to use your common sense every now and then. Know what the answer should be, or somewhere an estimate of the answer before you get the answer. Okay? My wife asks me all the time, we're in the store, whether we're in the grocery or we're in a department store or whatever, they have percents off, or Pepsi products are 3 for $10 and Coke products are 4 for $12 and all that stuff. And she wants to know, okay, which one's the better price? You got to be able to figure out some of this stuff in your head and think about it. All right? You're not always going to have a piece of paper and pencil or calculator right there with you. The other day we were at the grocery and she was buying water, bottled waters. And one of the bottled waters had 24, a case of 24, and they were, what were they? I think they were 2 for $5, so $2.50 each. And then another kind of bottled water had 32 in it, and they were 3 for $10. So 3 for $10 would be how much just per case?
3 apiece.
$3.33, somewhere around there, right? Which one's the better deal? How would we figure it out?
Whichever one you get more and cheaper.
How could we figure out which one? Now, in this case, do we have to bump the decimal over? Or are we doing percentages?
Oh, no.
No. So here, all we really have to do is take this, divide by 24, see how much each bottle costs. Take this, divide by 24, see how much each bottle costs. Now, all of you are going, I wouldn't do that, that's too much work. That's probably true, but if you look at it, what you could do is say 24 into 250, change it a little bit, make it something a little simpler. 24 will go into 250. 24 going to 25 once, right? With a little bit left over, that'd be 10. So each one of those bottles was about 10 cents. Okay? Then I do the same thing here. Go into there once. Then I got 13. Each one of those bottles is about 10 cents. Which one's the cheaper? They end up being about the same. So it didn't really matter which one we got. We ended up getting the 32 one because it had more in it and we wouldn't have to go back as quick. Alright? But you need to be able to do stuff like that. Same thing, you're walking through a department store, and department stores do stuff like this to poor people like you all the time. One department store will put up a sign that says 13% off. Next department store will put up a sign that says 1/7 off. Poor Michael walking through there doesn't have a clue which one of those is the better price. Gotta be able to deal with percentages and fractions and those different things. On one of them we had a percent, or on several of them we had a percent like this, 5.5%. What do you still do with the decimal? Bump it over 2. So what's that become? 0.055. Something I'm going to say right now. Listen closely so you understand this for the rest of the year. Don't tell me the 0 out in front of the decimal. It's unnecessary. Is that 0 necessary? Yeah. Is that 0 necessary? No. It's a waste of time. The only reason we put that 0 on there is so on the calculator you know that there's a decimal there. Don't tell me that 0. I don't ever want to hear you say 0.0 something something. Just tell me 0.055. Alright? Then you multiply that. You got to know to bump that decimal over 2 places. Change a percent to a decimal, you bump the decimal 2 places every single time. Get your calculators out. What I want you to do. First one, we're going to look at this. Just because I kept forgetting to hand this out to you. We should have done this like a week ago. On this one, this gives you the percentages that they suggest that you spend on each of those. Remember those sections that we had? They suggest that you spend this amount or this percentage on each item. Notice there, for clothing, just for Michael, doesn't say 90%.
Why do you always gotta say
It says what? Because you said something dumb that day. It doesn't say 90%, it says what? 6%. So about 5 or 6% of your stuff should be spent on your clothing. 4 would work. Now, a lot of you ask about housing that day. About what percentage should you spend on housing? About 25%, somewhere. 25% is normally what most companies say. You should spend about a quarter of your income on your housing. All right? Transportation. Sydney was just talking about getting a car. So when her mom pays this first down payment on this car, Sydney's got to look at, hey, my job, I make this amount. Am I going to be able to afford this? And what percentage of her income should she be spending on her car?
This sucks here.
10 to 15%.
10 to 15, 17, some places say up to 20. I wouldn't spend 20% of my income on my car. All right? You spend 20% of your income on your car payment, you're probably going to end up spending a whole lot more than that on your car because you got the upkeep of it and you got insurance on it. And the fancier car you got, what's going to be true about the insurance? It's going to be higher. What's going to be true about the upkeep on it? It's going to be higher.
And the parts. And the
Parts are going to be more. Huh?
The deductible too, probably.
Right.
And the down payment.
So make sure that when you get that, this is a good guideline, but you also got to know your situation. With what I have, I drive about 32 miles to school each day. It's not that far. It's not like I'm driving out on the highway, so I'm not real concerned about it. If my car breaks down, it breaks down. It's along some country road. I can call or walk somewhere and get there. Now, if you're driving from here to Dayton and you're on the highway, you probably don't want your car to break down. You don't want to be setting along 70 with all kinds of traffic. All right, so you might want to put more money into your car than what I put into mine. Does that make sense? Looking at the other thing, this is what I want you to use your calculators on. This is a pay stub that I ran off from somewhere. Somebody find the gross pay on there.
Gross amount.
35,900.
Not that one. I'm sorry, I should have been clear. Find me the gross pay for that pay period. That gross you're looking at is probably like a
$2,341.96.
Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Does that say gross?
It's the gross amount.
Now, if you notice on there, that says gross amount, then what's it say right below that? Adjusted gross, because there's some things, not taxes, because that's after your gross. There's some things that you can have taken out before you have it taxed. All right? Child support's not one of those. Stuff like you could have money deposited into a CD account or something like that the government gives you a break on if you're trying to save money. All right? And they let you take that out and put it in that account before they take their tax part. Okay? Other things. Sometimes If, depending on the job you have, they'll take out your medical expenses before that. And the government allows them to do that you can pay your medical bill first, then pay the taxes. So we have this number, that's the gross. Somebody find me the net pay. And it might also be called, anybody know a different name for net pay?
Year to date. The total.
Take home.
Your take home pay. Net pay or take home pay, is it on there somewhere?
$1,571.84.
Everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Now let's do this. Take your calculator, and I want you to divide that for me. Yeah, give me 3 or 4 numbers.
1.
Anybody else get that? Now, if we wanted to change that to a percentage, instead of bumping the decimal 2 places to the left, how am I going to do it?
Back to right.
Bump it 2 places to the right. So that's about 67%. So for this check stub, this person, their take-home pay was this, their gross pay was this. How much of their gross pay did they actually take home? 67%. All right. So let's take that and let's subtract that from 100. What's that give us? Grab your calculator. 33. What's 33% then? 33% is the amount of what?
That amount that you, I guess, taken out.
The amount that you didn't get.
Oh.
You didn't get 170.
So this person got about 33%. We were talking about how much you were going to spend and if you made $2,000 and all that. So can you really base your stuff off of that $2,000? No, because this person is not taking home 33% of
It's like $800.
their whole pay. All right, that's quite a bit of money, and you gotta make sure when when you actually get out and you have bills, and mommy and daddy's not paying for everything else, you gotta pay medical bills, you gotta pay all this other stuff. Your retirement fund, your whatever else is on here. We look down through there and you see these right here, these are all the deductions, things that are taken out. You got Ohio tax, you got STRS, which is a retirement fund. You got medical, you got dental, you got CAN, ACC, which I have no idea what that is. You got an annuity. You have STRS, which is another retirement part. You got One American, no clue what that is. Probably some kind of medical. You got Medicare, another medical. You got a school tax. All right? One of the students yesterday was saying, they took out $8, the school took out $8. It's not the school taking out $8. That's what they thought. They thought that the school, just because they went to school here, was coming to their place of business and taking $8 from their check. It's the school tax. So I had to explain to that person. Right. I had to explain to them, okay, so they took out $8 this week. Take 8 times, or they got paid every 2 weeks. So take 8 times 26. 8 times 26 ends up being something like $208. So, and I explained to them, so you're paying $208 in school tax for the education that you get here. That seems fairly fair, doesn't it? Because when you if you get to college, if you go off to college, $208, they'd laugh at you. That's gonna get you nothing. All right.
Get you a lunch, maybe?
That might buy you maybe 2 textbooks, depending on what kind of classes you're taking. If you're taking a math class, it'll buy you 1 textbook. If you're taking like a psychology or an English class, it might buy you 2. Okay?
What if you work, or if you live in a district, but you work in a different school district, you get 2 school taxes?
Sometimes. That depends on the agreement that you have as far as, like, between Ohio and Indiana, there might not be an agreement. So you might live over here and work over there, and you might have to pay both school taxes.
I have to pay both state taxes. Yeah, that's
If they didn't take taxes out, my check would be so much more.
I know. I used to live.
So you gotta watch out for stuff like that. Again, this person working all that time, and they're only taking home 2/3 of what they actually earn. The rest of it's paid out somewhere. Now, not all of it's paid out into taxes, and we'll talk about that as we go along, what percentage is paid out in taxes, because a lot of this is medical stuff. And with medical stuff, it's very, very expensive now. Okay? And it probably will be forever, because apparently nobody can figure out how to make it any cheaper. Yeah, give me a second.
Are we doing notes?
Yep, at some point. On the homework, did you have questions on the homework?
What page was it?
The page 104 and 107, is that right?
Yeah.
104 and 107.
Yeah, 19.
Didn't I give you guys hall passes?
Yeah, you said we're in England, right?
They were in your book, weren't they?
6.
For one of them all. Those papers I gave you at the start of the year. 6 on which page?
I don't know. 104.
104?
You're right.
What's on?
That's 7. Wait.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
It's alright.
I was still listening to him.
It's alright.
6.
Like, I know what,
So 8:15 to 12:10, and then 12:45 to 4:20, right? Is that the one? Am I doing the right one? So time in 8:15 to 12:10, and 12:45 to 4:20. So this is probably one of those places like a McDonald's or somewhere where you have to swipe your card. You go out for lunch, you swipe your card out, and then you come back and you swipe your card in. So here they probably took a lunch, and it looks like they took 35 minutes for lunch, right? So they don't get paid for that 35 minutes. All right. To find this, there's many different mathematical ways to do times, and I do none of them. I just do this: 8:15, 9:15, 10:15, 11:15. 12:15 would be 4 hours, but we didn't get it to 12:15. So it'd be 3 hours and 55 minutes. So we're 3 hours and 55 minutes right there. And you gotta watch, because I don't think McDonald's does this. I think they actually pay you for every minute. But some places will say, well, the factory I used to work at, they'd say, well, that's not a whole 15-minute increment. So they would actually round that down to 45 minutes, and that extra 10 minutes would just be lost.
Wow.
All right? And there's a lot of places that do that. They won't ever tell you they do it, and you won't ever know, because unless you figure it out yourself and say, hey, what's going on here? They'll just do it that way.
Blue Beacon does that. Blue Beacon does that.
Yeah, I was curious. I might add it.
No, they definitely do.
Sure.
Guarantee it.
Of course.
You wanna know why they don't want people to clock in? Cause they take your hours all the time.
Do you
Yeah, I
work
knew that.
there?
I did.
I worked there for a little under a year.
A lot,
I mean, I'm pretty sure.
A lot of the places
I
that
looked
use
at that.
computers do it that
Yeah,
way.
they don't even go through it.
On this other part, 12:45 to 4:20, so I'd go 1:45, 2:45, 3:45, and then we don't get to 4:45, right? So that's 3 hours, and we're at 3:45, and I would just count, okay, from 3:45 to 4:20, that's 15 minutes to get to 4 o'clock, and then another 20 minutes past that, so 15 and 20 give me how many? 35. So 3 hours, 35 minutes.
That's like a lot of time.
Then what do I have to do with these two?
You add them.
Add them. What's 3 and 3 give us?
6.
6. 55 and 35?
An hour and
25.
It'd be like 90,
90.
right? 90 minutes. Well, you know that 90 minutes, that's too much, so we're gonna carry part of it over to here, right? So that'd be an extra hour we carry over here, 7 hours, we take 60 away from there, 30 minutes, 7 hours, 30 minutes. That would be our answer.
Where was that?
19, same page, 105.
Yeah, I think.
19 says round to the nearest quarter hour.
so that would be 12, 15, 11.
11:55, what's the nearest quarter hour?
Oh wait, no, I think I'm
It said 12.
12 o'clock. Now, the bad thing with that, again, if you're working somewhere, is that the way they're gonna round it? No, they're actually gonna round it back to the nearest quarter hour, which would have been 11:45.
That's why I added this.
Yeah, I told you the wrong page.
Huh?
Same page as the other one.
Yeah, this
Yeah, I
is-
told you the wrong one.
Oh, you told me the wrong
Yeah,
page.
my bad.
That was 19 on the same page.
I meant the other one.
So 19 on page 107,
No, it's on 108.
108.
That one's just like time consuming. 19.
Is this one of the
Long.
piecework things?
Yeah, this one.
So 19, it says, somebody read it to me so I don't have, give me 1 second. Please start to read it.
Charlene, let me start now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Charlene Livingston operates an oil change and tune-up service. She charges $33.95 per oil change.
Stop right there. Alright.
Tune-up is $72.50.
$72.50.
Yep. For a 4-cylinder engine. $82.50 for a 6-cylinder engine.
Okay.
And then, and $92.50 for an 8-cylinder engine.
This is number 19, right?
Yeah. And what are the charges for a week in which Charlene's facility did 35 oil changes and tuned 5 4-cylinder engines, 7 6-cylinder engines, and 2 8-cylinder engines?
And they want to know the total amount, right? So what do we got to do with this 35? Multiply it times 33.95, right? So somebody help me out with your calculator. What's 1,188.25? Now let's do the 5 times 72.50. It's $362.50. And then do the 7 times 82.50. what's that, 185?
It's 185.
Give me a second. Do that in my head.
Then what do we do with all those? Add them all up? Somebody help me out, add all those up. Can't add them up in my head.
$2,313.
Is that all they wanted? Just all the total?
That's a lot of money.
Probably not really.
You wanna do another one? Sorry about that.
Yeah, maybe here in a second. Let's think about it. So you did all that stuff. You got 35 oil changes. If you got 40 hours in a week, let's say a normal 40-hour week, right? You got 40 hours in a week. We'll say an oil change. You know, if you have your own place, Jiffy Lube is supposed to do it in like 20 minutes or something, right? We'll say 30 minutes for each one of those. And we got 40 hours. So that's half of that would be 17 and a half. So that right there takes about 17 and a half hours. Tune up. Let's go with let's go with an hour and a half per each tune-up, just to be somewhere in the middle, maybe. All right, maybe you can get it done fairly quick if you know what you're doing. So we got 9, 14, 14. That'd be 14 hours plus that's 21 hours. So we're at 38 and a half hours. So that's pretty close to 40, right? That's so that maybe you can get by with one person working there. Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. Okay? Assuming that you can do all these. I'm doing this one, then I'm doing this one, then I'm doing this one. Probably some of these are going to have to be done at the same time, right? So you're probably going to need more than one person. But let's say you get by with just one person, that's their 40-hour week. That's probably about it. There's going to be an hour and a half in there of wasted time at some point, I'm sure.
You can be like Walmart and take like 3 hours. for
Right,
oil change.
to do one ridiculous thing.
I mean, it's cheap, but it takes forever.
So we have that. So we're saying one person does all this. Then what else do we have to figure in? Is that one person then going to make $2,300? What else do we have to figure in?
You have to pay your employee, you have to.
No, well, yeah, but we only have the one employee. You're the only employee.
Oh, you have to have cost of like your building that you're using.
Cost of the
tools that
building.
you have to use.
So rent, maybe you own the building. Let's even say you're doing it out of your garage and you already paid off your house and everything.
Stuff to pay, so tools.
Still gotta have tools.
And what else did they do?
What else do you think you're gonna need?
You're gonna need oil.
Don't need oil. What else? What's a tune-up involved? Spark plugs, air filters, all the other kinds of filters that might be on there. Fuel filter maybe, depending on what you consider, you know, what all goes into a tune-up. And probably with today's cars, what else are you gonna need in there?
Yeah,
Need
it's a lot
the
of money.
computer.
It's a lot.
Alright, so even with the 2,300, I can tell you oil, we did 35 oil changes. Each one takes 5 quarts. Maybe let's even drop it down to 4. That's 20, 140. So we need 140 quarts of oil. They're like $4
Plus
each.
$4 or $5.
We might get a cheaper price because we're buying it in bulk. So maybe we get it for $3 each, $3 a quart.
But you gotta think of what, like.
Still
some part might take
$420
different,
right there that you're taking off of the top. Do what?
Some parts might take different oils.
Some might take a special oil. Maybe some of them take a synthetic oil. Those are twice as expensive. Okay. So that's just $400. Then you got your spark plugs, your air filters, and all this stuff that you're gonna have to take off there. Let's just say there's another $400 there. So you're taking $800 off. Now all of a sudden this person's down to $1,500 in that week. And that's if everything else is paid for, and if you're the only one working. There's two of you working.
But you might be able to get more orders than just those.
Yeah, you might be able to get more than that if there's two of you working. Other questions? 14, same page?
Hold on.
It's actually the previous page. Craig Rose is an over-the-road driver. If he is paid 54 cents per mile, what is Craig's total pay per day that he drove 527 miles? What are you gonna do to figure that out? What do you do with that 54 cents and the 527? What would you do? This argument I had with one of my favorite students last year. Just take and multiply them, right? This person makes like $285 that day. Doesn't sound bad, does it? How long does it take to drive 527 miles? Think about it. If you go 60 miles an hour, it's not quite 600 miles. If it was 600 miles, 60 miles an hour, how long would it take? 10 hours, right? So it's not quite 10 hours. So maybe, right. So maybe 9 hours, let's say 9 hours. We take $285, 285 divided by 9. This person's making $31.67 an hour. That's great, isn't it? Until you start throwing in gas and all this other stuff. And that's why I tried to get through one of the young men that I had in here.
It's like $500.
Was thinking, oh, my sister's boyfriend makes like $40 an hour. So that's great. Does he own his own truck? Yeah, he owns his own truck. I said, then, well, you got to be careful because when you own your own truck, you got to have the upkeep on that truck. And upkeeping something on a semi, very, very expensive.
And it's off.
Talking about
Around or something weird.
There's all kinds of stuff. When you get,
The school's on there,
my uncle used to drive a truck, and it'd be he'd come home, and about once a week he'd be calling me and my brothers to come out and help him change tires because the tires would be bad already over just a week. So, and those tires, it's not like a car tire where you can't go to Walmart and buy a $32 tire.
Yes, they're expensive. Big old pry bar.
You gotta go somewhere and they're like $250 and he's buying the cheapest tire he can find. That's why we're changing them every week. Yeah.
That's why you see them all over the interstate on the road, just popped. Whole tire.
Having somebody come out and
That's right.
You might have to,
The road crew, those brothers.
you might have to
getting glued.
pay somebody to come out and do it.
I don't have any tread like
My tires are bald pretty much.
Never mind. I usually just wait until like the snow or the rain or the ground.
Go ahead and start copying this down. We gotta hurry because we're about out of time. What is it, 44 or something like that? We gotta move quick.
Yeah, that's all me.
Just write this title down, salary and commission. That's what we're gonna be working on, salary and commission.
What's that?
Can you remember that, salary and commission, so I can change the slide?
Yeah.
Salary and commission.
Thanks.
First, we're going to deal with salaries. There's different kinds of salaries. I'll give you a minute or so to copy this part down. Different kinds of salaries. The pay stub that you were looking at a few minutes ago, that pay stub was on a bi-weekly salary. actually, I take that back. That might be a semi-monthly salary.
That would suck.
Why?
Every other month?
No,
Twice a month.
semi-monthly
Oh,
means
never mind.
Twice a month, right?
twice a month. Now, why would semi-monthly and bi-weekly be two different things as you're writing this down?
Because you get paid.
Different dates, like, don't you get paid
Some
like the
months have,
15th
like-
and the 30th when it's,
When it's semi-monthly, you get paid just two certain days a month, 15th, 30th, maybe.
My dad gets paid every week.
Might be the 1st and the 15th or something like that.
And then bi-weekly, you
Not
can be
all
on
the
any
days.
day. Really? Yeah.
Right. Bi-weekly, and some places go to the semi-monthly because a lot of companies have somebody else who write out their payroll for them or take care of their payroll for them. You know, write out the checks and everything. And you probably see that on your check. If you work somewhere, on your check, it may have some other company's name on it. Like I used to work for Triumph Energy, that was the company that owned a bunch of gas stations. But on their check, it said something like Abco or something. And that was some business that just took care of their payroll for them. So they went to a semi-monthly thing because that way Abco only had to write out or do 24 pays in a year instead of 26. Well, it costs less money. If they only had to do the payroll 24 times in a year, that saved the company money instead of doing it 26 times. And that's the school here actually, a couple years ago, they went from a bi-weekly to a semi-monthly because then they only have to write out 24 checks for each person who works here per year
So you're
instead
gonna
of
rip that out of
26.
You just make them next year.
Sorta. I mean, if you're on salary, it shouldn't make any difference. But a lot of the teachers here did throw a fit because it does end up making a difference in like when taxes come out and stuff. Because now, if I'm only getting paid 24 times a year, then it looks like my check is bigger. So the taxes that the government takes is more.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not making any more, but it looks like, so I went from, making $800 every 2 weeks to $900 every 2 weeks.
And that adds up.
And that adds up because, and then the government says, well, you're making more, so now you're in a higher tax bracket. And so they take out more money.
That's stupid.
And a lot of the teachers and people, employees that work here threw a big fit when they wanted to do this. Because they wanted to say, hey, we're losing money because of this.
Why don't we just go on strike?
Go ahead.
I mean, like everybody, the whole school, and you guys, and the teachers. We
Be
all
a little late now, it was like 2-3 years ago. So, types of salaries.
Yeah, we can do that.
A salary is a fixed amount of money earned on a regular basis. You earn a salary. Sometimes salaries are good, sometimes they're bad. All right. We talked last time about being on salary at McDonald's. I think we talked about that here, didn't we? You're on salary. Maybe it was one of my other classes. You're on salary at McDonald's, and I know when I worked there, they kept after me, hey, why don't you become an assistant manager? And they wanted to put me on a weekly salary. I said, there ain't no way. So because as soon as I become an assistant manager, you're going to want me in here like 60 hours a week. And that's the way it was. And they weren't going to pay me anymore for being in there 60 hours. I said, I'll just stay where I'm at, and if you want me in here 60 hours, I'll come in 60 hours, but you're going to pay me for all of them. So you got to watch. Sometimes salary's good, sometimes it's not so good. Different types of salaries. You could be on a weekly, 52 pays. That means you get 52 pays over a year. Bi-weekly, 26 pays per year. Semi-monthly, 24 pays in a year. Monthly is 12 pays per year. There are some jobs, and not a whole lot, that you get paid annually.
I never really heard of monthly either.
Right.
I don't really know places do that.
Yeah, there's some. these are probably not jobs that we have around here. Monthly and annually would be like a big CEO of some, big companies, or a president of some big company, or, a vice president of some big company.
Like, if they sell one house a month, that's monthly, isn't it?
No, that's a completely different thing.
I mean, if they sell like one house a month, that's more than once a month they get paid, right?
It depends on how much they sell.
That's when you're a real estate person, that's probably on commission, and that's what we're gonna talk about here in a minute. Now, some of them might also get paid monthly, and we're gonna talk about what the difference is there. But just to get a monthly salary, that would be, or just a yearly salary, like Donald Trump for Trump Industries, he probably gets paid annually. They give him, they work it out where he gets, right, because he gave it all to his kids now. But he would get paid where he gets this amount at the end of the year, or at the beginning of the year, whenever. And then he's got to make that, use that throughout the entire year. So that's a salary. You get a certain set pay. You're not doing all this stuff like we were just multiplying 40 hours times this. I'm on salary here. No matter how many hours I stay here and work extra, I get paid the same amount. All right, so last night I left here about, I think it was about 5 o'clock. I left here. I got here this morning about 6:15 to do some work. I'm not going to make any extra money for that. So salary's good sometimes, not so good other times. Tom is a web designer. His annual salary, don't write this down, let's just follow along. His annual salary is $64,400. What is Tom's monthly salary? How would we figure out if this is his annual salary? How would we figure out his monthly salary? So grab your calculator and help me out. 64,400 divided by 12. 5,366.
0.6.
So 0.67. That's his monthly salary. He would make a little over $5,000 per month. Now, they also want his weekly salary. What would we do to find that?
Divided by
64,400 divided by 52. Divide that real quick. It's going to tell how much he makes per week. What'd you get?
1,238.461.
It's about $1,238.46 per week. So that's if he was on salary, that's what he would make. And again, some people, a lot of young people don't like the monthly or the bi-weekly or whatever. You want money every week, so you have it there at some point. That goes along with the fact that you got to be able to budget your stuff. All right, if you're on a monthly salary, then you got to know, hey, this has got to last me for the month. So I'm not going to go out, if I get paid on the 1st, I'm not going to go out on the 2nd and spend $4,000 and only have $1,000 left for the rest of the month. You got to be able to budget something. Your current job, watch on this one, this is what the homework's like. Your current job as a wedding planner pays a monthly gross salary of $2,560. So you make that amount per month. You're offered a new position as an event planner that pays $12.60 per hour with time and a half for anything over 40 hours. How many hours of overtime per week would you need to work to earn the same as your current job? So we know that we earn this right now, and we're thinking, man, I like this other. I'm gonna like this other job better. I think I'm gonna take it. But they pay $12.60 per hour. Which job's better? You gotta be able to compare them, right? And that's sort of hard. So on this, what we need to know is how many hours per week are we gonna have to work at $12.60 to get to this. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take that $12.60. How many hours do we normally work in a week? 40. So somebody help me out and let's multiply that.
540.
So that means normally we would make $504 per week, right? Well, how many weeks are there in a month normally? 4. So what do we do with this?
Divide by 4. Like times 4.
So if we took this new job and we just went and worked 40 hours every week for a normal month, we would make $2,016. Is that a better job then? Not so far. And that's what they're saying. You're gonna have to work some overtime hours. All right?
It's also not salary, so
And-
you might be working those overtime hours anyway.
Right. So we got this. How are we gonna figure out how much money we still need to make in overtime to make this job worthwhile? To make it worth changing? What would you do with this number?
Subtract it from the $2,560.
So somebody do that for me. 2560 minus 2016. Say it again. 544. So we need to make $544 in overtime pay. Well, that's still not what they ask us. They ask us to figure out how many extra hours we're gonna have to work. How can we figure out how many hours it's gonna take us to make that 544?
Or type 1260 times time and a half.
Now, Michael brings up a good point. Are we just gonna divide that by 1260? No, for the overtime, we're actually gonna make more, right? So we're gonna take that 12.60 and we're gonna times it by 1.5. So do that for me. That's gonna tell us how much we actually make when we're in overtime. It's come out to be 18 point what? 9. So $18.90. Does that make sense? Yeah, it should be more than this, right? Now we got that $18.90. That's how much we make per hour.
Divided by the
Set it backwards, but you're right. So we're going to take 544 and divide it by 1890. What's that tell us? 28 point what? So we'll just round that off because we're probably not going to have part of an hour, right? 29 hours. Now Michael's saying, dang.
That's 70 hours in a week.
No. Because think about it. We were doing monthly stuff here, right? So we're doing everything on the month. So how many weeks did we say we're in a month? 4. So what can we do to this? Divide it by 4. So what's 29 divided by 4? So we'll round that off to about 8. So about how many hours per week extra do we need to work?
48.
We need to work about 8 hours.
48 hours.
48 hours in a week, right? About 8 extra hours in a week to catch up. So we'd have to work 48 hours per week to get back to the pay we were making at that other job if we quit it.
It's like an hour 15 extra a day.
Well,
Screw that.
you probably wouldn't work 7 days a week. Most people don't work 7 days a week. It'd probably be 5 or 6 maybe. All right, write this down. Commission. Different ways you can have commissions. A commission rate. You got to be real careful with commissions. I just had trying to think who it was. I think it was my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law took a job. He worked at restaurants his whole life. He was either a waiter or a manager, assistant manager at restaurants his whole life, and he quit here just a few days ago, or a few weeks ago. And he took a job where he was going to be on straight commission.
No, it's,
And I think he figured that out after about 2 days. Because then 2 days later, when I talked to him, he said, "Oh no, I got a job at this restaurant." He said, I didn't like that other job. Because if you're on straight commission, you have to do what?
But
You have to work. You have to bust your tail.
other places, like if it's not busy, you just chill. But you actually have to do stuff.
Alright, so straight commission, you only make what you sell or what you know, whatever it is. However it's set up, it might be phone calls, it might be things you put together or whatever it is. You only make money if you do something. Right? And there's a lot of places, a lot of car dealerships used to be on straight commission where you only made money if you sold cars. Alright, and that's when those people were coming out and getting in your face as soon as you pulled in the lot, right? They were like running towards your car. What can we help you with? It's not that way as much anymore because now you see them, they all sort of just stroll out there. Hey, can you help? Can we help you? And when you have a person like me, I say, no, we're just looking. And then they just walk away.
Wait, so does that mean like people that like Best Buy and stuff, they get
They probably make some commission also.
That's,
I get commission when I work, but I get paid.
I don't think they do because my best friend works there. but-
Some of them do,
You walk in the
depends.
store.
And
Oh, yeah.
they're probably not on straight commission. Right? And that's what we're gonna talk about. Straight commission, that's the only pay you get is that percentage.
That's why 10 people will be asking you how you doing. How you doing?
The other ways that you could be paid, these are the other ways. There's 2 other ways that you could use commission. And this is what some of the people at Best Buy, some of them are one of these 2 ways. Yeah. A minimum salary, you're guaranteed a minimum amount of money per pay period. So a lot of the people's at some place like Best Buy, not all of them, but some of them, depends on what you're hired in as. A lot of the people, you're guaranteed a minimum amount of money per week or per month or per whatever. So they'll tell you, you're going to make, or it might be per hour. A lot of waiters are that way. All right, as a waiter or a waitress, you could be hired in and make $2.30 per hour.
Yes.
And where your money comes from is the tips that you make. And that's sort of what this is. Right? So you're guaranteed a minimum amount, but then one of these 2 things is going to add to your.
I think that's stupid. They get paid like $4 an hour
Yeah, but
to
they
do the
make a
same
lot.
thing.
Sometimes.
You
get
can.
paid $2.25.
Screw that.
So some people don't even get a card because there's
On the first one, it could be set up to where you make a certain amount per month, but if you sell more and your percentage is higher of those sales than what your minimum pay would be, then you get paid the higher of the 2. So you got a choice. $400 per month, or let's say you sell $8,000 worth of material and the percentage is going to be higher, you make that amount. So that's one possible way. The other way, you could get a minimum salary, so you might make like $200 a week plus a percent of what you sell. And that's the way most car dealerships are now. Most car dealerships are, you make, if you go in there as a salesman, you're going to make this amount per week. If you sell 3 cars, you're going to get a percentage of that added on to that.
Do we have homework?
Yeah, get to it right here in a second.
That's not the one, that's not what there is.
2 separate pages, but it's pretty short. It's like 11 on the one page and like 8 on the other.
time to waste like some of these other classes.
Yeah, first out high school, I came in. Mr. Griffin's class, and he just started teaching, didn't even miss syllabus, nothing. I was like, what are we doing?
He was telling me what you were doing.
Yeah.
Doing this work.
Syllabus is annoying too. I mean, you same stuff.
Yeah.
Let's get it.
Yeah.
Let's get it.
Yeah, some of it's sort of a waste. My geometry syllabus might not even be right anymore because it's probably about 6 years old and I haven't changed it.
Right.
Last time I ever, not so far. I'm not sure.
Michael, bring a calculator.
Just make sure. I think I have. Just want to make sure.
You too.
Have a good day, Mr. Ebersol.
You too.
See you tomorrow.
Brandon never. She was back in here. Ran.
She's like the first one out.
She was ran out. She must have been ran out. Breaking my heart.
I don't know how I feel about having to really take class before this. I'm always tired.
Everybody else is saying Ty did start.
Did it? I mean, honestly, if you weigh over 300 pounds, you ought to start. Come on. If you can bench over 300 pounds, he benches over 3. He weighs over 3. You should be able to start. That's the sad thing though. Is Cole benched over 3, but he went back and started. Cole Landers benched over 3, squats 450. He started. It don't matter how much you bench him. It matters about technique.
Got to be able to move a little bit.
Have a good day.
You too.